It's a Dota Weekly Show!
Yay!
Today's November 24th, 2011. I'm Luminous, your host for the Dota Weekly Show, and let's get right onto the news. We have yet another Chinese reshuffle going on, and this time it is going to be IG. Invictus Gaming, formerly having two teams, IG.Y and IG.Z, now breaking both those two teams up, and they're going to be forming the new IG, which comprised from star players from both the teams. And first question from me is, why? Sure, you have a great new roster, but you broke up two teams that are arguably in the top 5 of the Chinese scene. Sure, they're not number 1, but they're definitely top 5, and maybe if they train a little bit harder, they can beat DK and claim the number 1 slot. If the reason alone was, okay, they're not top 1 teams, let's just break them up, let's form a better team, I don't know, I have a pretty mixed feeling about that. Number 1 is like, hey, you know what, it's a good attitude. You know what, we go for number 1, or we go for nothing. Go big or go home. I like that attitude. But you're breaking up teams that have so many fan base that it destroys me, because both those teams are so strong, and now they're gone. Gone forever. Fortunately, we'll be seeing the new IG team fairly soon. They are still in the HFGL, which I'm casting. They're going to be attending SMM, so that's going to be a great... So we're going to see a glimpse of them. Maybe the switch is, in preparation of Dota 2, because guess what? There's only one big tournament left for the Chinese to attend, and the rest of it, well, there's still the G League, there's still HFGL, and there's still SMM, but SMM by far is the biggest tournament. So maybe this is a move in preparation of Dota 2, I don't know. But it's definitely a very curious move, to me at least. But the new IG team is going to be a roster to look out for, because they really have starstruck players. But before we move on to news, you guys remember DK in 2011? At the beginning of 2011, they had a sick roster as well, but where did that roster get them? Nowhere. So sometimes having a lot of star players might not be the best thing. Just my thought on that one. Now, speaking of SMM, we have a new Chinese team that's going to be attending as well. That's going to be LGD. They have somehow secured themselves a slot, so cool. We're going to see yet another Chinese team, really top-notch Chinese team, going to be attending SMM, so I'm looking forward to that. Speaking of LGD, they have actually lost ZSMJ. ZSMJ is retiring. We don't know how permanent this retirement is, but he is retiring nonetheless. He's leaving LGD. What a sad day it is for the Dota community. We had, back in 2009, ZSMJ just broke out as a player with his team, just carrying them to victory. There was a time where he lost the Sacred Relic, farmed it back, no problem. 2009, he was probably one of the best farmers. 2010, arguably, he's the best farmer in the entire year. Had a lot of signature heroes, a lot of signature games, 720 creep kills in 55 minutes with Medusa. We have awesome farming on, Alchemist, Phantom Lancer, Syllabear. You could name every carry. He's played all, he's farmed it all. And he's the remaining member in the original FTD, the original LG lineup, and now he's no longer there. He's being replaced by Sylar from WE. Let me tell you something really curious. I had the opportunity to cast LG versus WE, I believe, for the Halfeng Golden League. And from the 2 games I casted for LGD, I could tell you for sure that Sylar is not as good as a farmer as ZSMJ. His positioning and teamfight needs work compared to ZSMJ. ZSMJ, by far, technical aspect, is a better player than Sylar. But LGD is winning with Sylar, whereas LGD wasn't winning with ZSMJ. So I don't know if this is a chemistry issue. I don't know if Sylar just works better with LGD. It doesn't matter if he doesn't farm as much, as long as he wins. So I don't know where I'm standing on this. I'm glad the LGD is doing better now, but then I'm also pretty sad that one of my favorite players of all time is just retiring. So pretty sad thing indeed. Speaking of old players, speaking of favorite players, remember eHome? We talked about it last week that they are disbanding. Well, since they're disbanding, eHome X, eHome 357 is now going to Nirvana China. And guess what? The new Nirvana China lineup looks like eHome 2010. We have King J, X, and 357, which are, from the eHome 2010 lineup. We have Banana on the support role, which could sort of replace A20, not really, but, playing the same role. And we have Seeking playing the carry role, which, kind of like Burning-esque. So that's a 2010 eHome lineup that had a lot of success. In fact, they were the strongest team in the world in 2010, so maybe Nirvana China with this new roster could be doing something as well. Again, it's a very curious switch, because Nirvana China looking pretty decent lately, but they're gonna, again, re-ramp up their team for SMM, for G League, for Halfeng Golden League, It is going to be fun to see how many of these new teams going to be working in the coming days of the remaining Dota 1 scene. I'm looking forward to that. Speaking of Dota 1 lands, WDC replays are out. And yes, DotaCommentaries.com will be casting each and every single replay for WDC. We today have drafted up all the replays, and check out the link in the description box to see who is casting which games. It is going to be epic. I have a lot of games to cast. Which brings me to my next point, is it's going to be Dreamhack weekend, starting from tomorrow till 3-4 days from now, 2-3 days from now. So I'm going to be casting partially for the Dreamhack event. I don't know if I'm just doing the group stage and the qualifiers, or if I'm actually doing, all the way to the tournament final. I'll let you know a little bit more about that. But do show up and support me. You can find my stream on the front page of Ghost Gamer. You should be able to find it on the front page of DotaCommentaries.com as well. So that's going to be great. Yeah, it's going to be Dota 2. In fact, it's like the first time I'm casting a large international LAN, being like a live caster there. So I'm actually looking really forward to it. And hopefully you guys can show up and support me there. I will definitely really appreciate that. And that's pretty much it for all the news. I'm not doing a mechanic for this week. I know. I'm sorry. I have a lot of stuff to do. WDC replays, I have to ramp up and do all of that. I've had the Dreamhack this weekend, and my papers are being finalized and being due in the coming days as well. So I'm going to take it easy this week. I apologize. Next week we're going to come back full force with the mechanic. So with that out of the way, we're going to talk about the Betakeys and the Riddle. So if you can't tell by now, this Riddle, all the lines are pointing towards Nevermore, Shadow Fiend. And I think with that said, you could kind of just read through each line. You could see why Shadow Fiend was kind of picked out. The entire riddle is written in like a very dark tone, and the last line completely gives it away, because it is one of the lines from Edgar Allan Poe's very famous poem, and that poem inspired Nevermore. So, or that poem directly points to Nevermore. So actually a lot of people guessed Nevermore, and that's fine. So that was the easy part of the riddle. The hint I gave was iambic pentameter. Which, if you don't know what that is a 10-syllable line. Each line has to be 10 syllable long, and each line is alternating with stressed and unstressed syllables. So if you look at the lines, that's what they are. And a lot of people are complaining, well, they're not iambic pentameters. There's so many lines with 11 syllables. If you have taken any Shakespearean English class, or if you're taking any kind of poetry class, you will know that iambic pentameter, you are allowed to have 11 syllables to help the rhyming scheme. If you don't believe me, go Google it. That's definitely the case. Yes, I knew about it when we written the poem, or when we written the riddle. So, yes, some lines did have 11 syllables, but again, iambic pentameter will allow you to have 11 syllables. So why is that a hint? You said, well, here's the riddle, and here's the stress versus unstressed version of the riddle, with the stress parts all capitalized. And now you can see a lot of words that you could look for, and amongst those capitalized words, you will see he who must not be named, and that is a direct lifting of quotation coming from J.K. Rowling's book, the Harry Potter series, Voldemort, the Dark Lord, or he who must not be named. So that's presence of the Dark Lord, presence of Dark Lord. I hope that was clear. We actually spent, we as in B-Balling and I, big shout out to B-Balling, because we spent 3 hours writing this one. It was so hard to write all these stress and unstressed parts, but we persevered and we wrote that one out. So I think that one was a little bit difficult because only one person guessed through it, and that was Sayonara. So shout out to him for being able to guess that one out. And yep, this week I'm also giving away 5 beta keys. Check your name in the description box below, and if your name's there, I will be sending you a PM very shortly with a beta key. And that's it for all the beta key stuff. So 3 things from this weekly show. Sorry, I don't have the mechanic. I will come back with mechanic next week. Just really busy with WDC, Dreamhack, and all that stuff. WDC replays, commentaries will be out very shortly. And support me on Dreamhack tomorrow and the weekend, because I'll be casting a lot of Dota 2 games there as well. Oh, one last thing. If you haven't done so yet, check out B-Balling's new podcast series. Yes, he's running a Dota podcast. It's, jokes, it's fun, it's talking about Dota related stuff. I'll give you a link to episode 1. Keep in mind they're starting out, and they really appreciate if you give them any comments and feedback on that as well. So if you're into podcasts in general, give them a try. I listened to it, and it was really fun. So I appreciate if you guys checking them out as well. That's it. Hope you guys enjoyed this week's Dota Weekly Show, and as always, This is Luminous signing off. G, you guys.